I'm sure you have felt it at this point. There's that nagging sense that the world is playing by a completely new set of rules. The career path that you were promised now feels like a dead one. The Friday nights that used to be a given are now just quiet. If you're feeling this way, you're not just imagining things. In fact, you're part of a massive silent majority. The aftershocks of the Great Resignation have permanently changed our relationship with work. Nightlife as we knew it is fading and being replaced by something entirely different. And the very definition of a good life is being torn up and rewritten right before our eyes. This isn't a temporary trend. This is a deep fundamental reset of our society. And it explains why everything feels so different going into 2026. And all throughout last year, there has been a collective exhaustion among society. And it's been popping up more and more on social media. People are becoming more aware and people are getting to a breaking point. Drinking's actually at an all-time low and a lot of us are growing up. Priorities are changing and the whole constant stimulation, constant entertainment, constant scrolling, going out, being on dating apps, like that dysfunction is no longer attractive to people anymore. I think a lot of society as a collective is just exhausted by it. So let's look at the symptoms. We're in the middle of a huge cultural shift and a collective recalibration of what we value and how we live. And it's not just one thing, it's a perfect storm of forces that are rewiring our world. This isn't some grand conspiracy, it's a consequence of a way of life that for millions has finally hit a breaking point. And this great recalibration stands on three pillars. First is the permanent hangover from the traditional corporate grind. The Great Resignation wasn't just a blip, it was the opening act. The mass exodus may have slowed, but the mindset it created is here to stay. So high turnover is now a chronic headache for companies that refuse to see that the game has changed. And second, the quiet death of conventional nightlife. The pull of the packed club, the noisy bar, the ritual of going out is losing its power. It's being replaced by a desire for something more intentional, more connected, and frankly less exhausting. And third, this is the big one. The total rewrite of what it even means to be successful. The old script, climb the ladder, buy the house, get the stuff, has lost its magic, and in its place, a new definition is emerging, one that's more personal and puts well-being and freedom way ahead of status and wealth. These three things aren't happening in a vacuum. They're all connected, feeding into and amplifying each other. They're the signs of a society rethinking its priorities from the ground up. And to see where we're headed, we have to understand why this is all happening right now. So why now? What kicked all of this off? It's a perfect storm of economic reality and tech disruption and a massive shift in what we collectively value. So let's start with the economic reality. So for generations, the deal was very simple. Work hard and you'll get ahead. But for millions of people, especially millennials and Gen Z, that deal is completely broken. Wages have stagnated while the cost of living has skyrocketed, and making those traditional goals feel completely out of reach. The goalposts haven't just moved, they have been launched into another galaxy. And this is the fuel for the Great Resignation hangover. It's not just about the paycheck anymore, it's the realization that many jobs, particularly in hospitality and retail, just don't offer a path to a stable life. And when your job doesn't pay enough for rent, let alone a future, why would you stick around? This has created a new kind of workforce, and people aren't just looking for a job, they're looking for a purpose and flexibility. A significant number of younger workers are always considering their next move, and not out of disloyalty, but as a strategic retreat from a game that feels rigged. Burnout isn't a badge of honor anymore, it's a breaking point. This same financial squeeze is killing nightlife, and a night out used to be casual, and now it's a luxury expense. Between covered charges, ridiculous drink prices, and getting home, one evening can blow an entire week's budget, and for a generation already drowning in debt, the math just doesn't work. It's no surprise that saving money is a huge factor for people choosing to drink less or stay in. And then there's a technological revolution. Like, tech has a way of solving problems we didn't know we had, while creating brand new ones. So for socializing, dating apps have changed everything. Y'all know how I feel about them, and it's probably not something you should use. But a key reason people went to bars and clubs was to meet someone, and now that entire marketplace is in your pocket. So why shout over loud music in a crowded, expensive bar when you can swipe through an endless catalog of people from your couch? That comes with its own problems and it's its own double-edged sword, but at the same time, remote and hybrid work have torn up our social maps. The office, for all of its faults, was built in a social scene. It's where you made work friends and went for happy hour. Now that's largely gone. And as employers try to drag people back to the office 3 or 4 days a week, they're meeting resistance. For a vast majority of Gen Z, a lack of flexibility is a deal breaker, and many have considered leaving jobs over it. The digital world has also created new hangouts, virtual concerts, gaming communities, niche online groups that offer connection without the cost or hassle. And these are the new third places where people finally found their tribe. And finally, most profoundly, we have the value shift. The pandemic hit the gas pedal on this, and it forced a global timeout, a moment where everyone at the same time was forced to think about their lives, their health, and their time. In the hustle culture of the 2010s, that glorification of being busy and burnt out suddenly looked ridiculous when faced with the global health crisis. And people started asking the tough questions. Is this promotion worth my mental health? Is a bigger salary worth the constant stress? And for millions, the answer was a hard no. This sparked a mass movement towards prioritizing well-being, and you can see it clearly in the sober curious trend. This isn't about quitting alcohol entirely. It's about being more mindful of its role in your life. It's a trend that continues to grow, with studies before 2025 showing nearly half of Americans and about 65% of Gen Z plan to drink less. A top reason? Improving mental and physical health. This shift has given rise to new kinds of events like soft clubbing or early morning daybreaker parties, and gatherings focused on wellness and connection, often fueled by coffee instead of cocktails. It's about choosing more presence, more joy, and more real connection. With all that being said, there's definitely a new path going forward. So where do we go from here? This isn't the end of society, it's actually an evolution. And we're watching the messy but vital birth of a new way of living. And one of the biggest challenges is the deliberate search for third places. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined the term third places to describe the spots outside of home and outside of work that build community. So think cafes, libraries, bookstores, barbershops, gym, parks. And for years, these places were starting to disappear. But now people are actively trying to bring them back. People are tired of social lives that are built around spending money. They're seeking out spaces that foster real, casual connection. And you see it in the return of hobby groups, community sports, local meetups, and even bookstores reinventing themselves as social hubs. Barnes & Noble, for example, is leaning into this and using its cafes and events to encourage people to hang out. These are places where community is the whole point. I think with the loneliness epidemic going on between men right now, especially in Gen Z, this is a great turning point. And this all leads to the biggest outcome of this whole shift, which is the redefinition of success. The old scoreboard is obsolete, and the new success isn't measured by a job title or the size of your bank account. It's measured by the richness of your life. It's defined by autonomy, flexibility, and purpose. Success in 2026 might look like working a 4-day week and have more time with family. It might be leaving a 6-figure job to start a small business that actually makes you happy. It could be designing a life around experiences and learning and not just accumulating stuff. The world has made it clear that success is personal and not one size fits all. People are realizing that they have the power to define what a good life looks like for them, and they're brave enough to go out and build it. This isn't about giving up on ambition, it's about aiming your ambition at what truly matters. We are not going back to normal. The ground has shifted for good. The new attitudes towards work, the move away from traditional nightlife, and the rewriting of our life goals are all signs of the same thing, a collective demand for a more intentional, balanced, and authentic life. This can feel scary, but it's also an incredible opportunity. We're being forced to ask much bigger questions, and because of that, we're coming up with much better answers. But that's just my take. What do you think? Do you feel this shift in your own life? Have you changed your career or social life? Or how do you define success? Let me know in the comments. Your story is part of this massive reset. Anyways, if you made it this far, I appreciate you, and I hope y'all enjoyed and that this resonated with y'all. Peace out.